Okay, so now we're going to go through the steps that we need to take to draw a Lewis structure for a covalent molecule. The first step is always to determine the total number of valence electrons for the molecule. The number of valence electrons for any element is equal to its group number in the periodic table. So for example, let's go ahead and look at drawing the Lewis structure for the molecule of fluorine, F2. How many valence electrons does fluorine have? Well, fluorine is in column 7 of the periodic table, but there are 2 of them, so we have a total of 14 valence electrons. Okay, so now what do? We need to figure out how we're going to glue the 2 fluorine atoms together. In this case, it's pretty straightforward because there's only 2 atoms. Really, the only thing we can do is glue them to each other. But we'll see when there's more than 2 atoms, we typically want to put the first atom in the formula as the central atom and bond everything else to it. Okay, so that we're moving down the rules here. Okay, we'll get back to organic molecules a little bit later. So then what do? We're on step 2b. We want to start by using a pair of electrons to form the bond between each of the bonded atoms. Okay, so we have a total of, as we said, 14 valence electrons. We're going to use 2 of them to glue the 2 fluorine atoms together. Okay, remember electrons are our glue. All right, moving on to step 2c, what do we do with the rest of these electrons? Well, we arrange the rest of the electrons as lone pairs on each atom to satisfy the octet rule, which means each atom wants 8 electrons around it. Okay, so we have 2 in the middle. We're going to do 2 more, so that's 4 total, 6, 8. So we're putting them in as pairs. And notice I now have a total of 8 valence electrons around this particular fluorine. So I keep going. We've used 8 so far. Here, whoops, I wanted red. Here we have 10. Why is it not showing red? 12, 14. Let me just make those red there. Okay, so we've used all of our valence electrons. We have 8 around each of the fluorine atoms, so that's satisfying the octet rule. And we're almost done with our Lewis structure for fluorine molecule. So if we keep going, some of these rules don't apply to this one. We'll go down to this last rule over here, 2D. For our final structure, we want to replace any bonding electrons with lines, and we'll leave the lone pair electrons as dots. So I'm going to redraw this structure up here. Again, I have my 2 fluorine atoms. I'm going to go ahead and use a line to connect them. That line is representing these bonding electrons. All of the electrons around the outside of the fluorine are called lone pair electrons. And we're going to go ahead and draw all of those in as dots. So here's our final Lewis structure for the F2 molecule.